Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambermont Weber, and we're extraordinarily privileged, and I would say humbled today, quite authentically, to be with two people, two heads of family who I consider to be modern day heroes, Ella and Abraham, who are the parents of Alyssa and Gabriel, and who are coming to us from an undisclosed location, understandably. This is their first interview since the decision by a high court judge in the UK yesterday, followed by articles in two of the mainstream media of the UK. This is what journalist M.A. Devlin of the CCN network had to say, Ella and Abraham, about this court, this judge, and these media. And I would like to ask for your opinion. She said, a court, quote, a court and a judge and mainstream media channels have now become complicit in cultic child ritual abuse by participating in widespread pedophile cover-up. May I please ask for your thoughts and comments on what journalist M.A. Devlin from the CCN network has said objectively about this judge's judgment and the articles of the UK Daily Mail, the Telegraph, and perhaps others. Ella and Abraham, whoever wants to go or whoever would like to go first.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us for this interview and providing a platform to voice our position and kind of take on that. And in regards to your question, yeah, I totally agree with this quote. That's what exactly we're experiencing at the moment. And from the main beginning, it was a cover-up, and children actually spotted it right away. My daughter, for example, said it like after 3 days of after the first interview. She said, "Well, police doing nothing." And this is the case. We felt it right away. And then moving into the kind of legal system and fighting for children is just kept proving the fact that they would go a long way in covering this up. And now what we see is mass media being totally controlled by the system. And looks like they're all in it. I mean, I wouldn't say they're all involved in ritual sacrifices and the practices, but they are covering it up. So what interest do they have in covering this up?
Right, right. Would you like to say any words, Abraham?
Wow. We thought we were dealing with an infestation. Okay, we thought that we'd slumbered, we'd slept as a race, and we were dealing with an infestation of Satanists. But it seems that ritual child rape and child sacrifice is not child rape. It's actually, it seems to be an integral part of this culture. It appears that we've uncovered a death culture. They're drinking children's blood. They're eating flesh, and it's shocking. But it seems that we've allowed it to not only fester, but to become an integral part of our culture, to the degree whereby they now have the gall and the audacity to attempt to get us to accept this abominable behavior. So yes, I agree with the quote. Only I'd go a bit further, that's all, as I must say.
Now, you both, Ella and Abraham, and your family, Alyssa and Gabriel, collectively, together, if we want to look at it with the full weight of history, you know, going back to there on Hampstead Heath, where this was all set, going back a couple of centuries to Bram Stoker, who lived there, who wrote Dracula, set Dracula there. It looks like this has been going on for a long time. If you go to the Highgate Cemetery, if you begin to get into this history of this. So you are really uncovering a world hub of pedophilia, ritual child sacrifice that has been going on for a long time. And before we get into the specifics of you're presenting the facts. I mean, I, as a lawyer and as a judge on a citizens tribunal, reading the passages from the opinion and what's reported in the newspaper, know that this is a fraud. But you have just come through, and you are coming through a time period that is, I mean, it's Herculean, the task that you have upon your shoulders. And I'd just like to ask you in a very human way, as a family, how are you feeling, you know, as parents, as in your home, as individuals? Could you just share with us at that level?
What I mean, do I understand you correctly? How do we feel about the situation we're in now?
Well, just you're coming through what many people would feel as a life challenge. These are life challenges. All of a sudden, your children have been taken from you unjustly by a system which appears to be on the side of a worldwide network of pedophilia and child trafficking and child sacrifice. How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're defeated? Are you feeling like you're ready to move on and continue to challenge this? How do you feel?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna give my children to this cult or whoever they are, the government, the social services. I'm not going to give my children up. This is that's what it is. And in regards how I feel about it, I guess it's challenging our morals, it's testing our morals. What, you know, like every day you asking yourself, are you making right choices? I think it's a spiritual battle, to my understanding, and for some reason we're kind of caught in between this, you know, between these two forces. Now kind of came to culmination to, you know, one overcomes the other, and we know that, you know, we're telling the truth, children, we're telling the truth, and really, you know, God is on our side. But, you know, of course, it's challenging. I mean, it is not easy. I mean, it's an incredibly stressful situation. But nevertheless, I mean, what else can we do? I mean, we are fighting for our children. We're fighting to return our children. Very simple, and I guess every parent would do that. It's not any kind of like, there's nothing special about it. Everybody would do the same. Who will give up their children?
Right.
To the rapists, to the murderers, to the criminals, really.
We can't rest, Alfred.
And also, I would say, I don't want I would say it correctly if I would answer for all of us, that we feel betrayed as well. Because I mean, you have a face. You know, I took children to the police when I heard their disclosures. Who knew that they're gonna be just covering it up so blatantly? And not just that, if the further you go, the worse it becomes. You know, now the judicial system is implicated. Now the media is controlled. Now they're taking the videos from internet. You know, you know, the freedom of speech now is compromised on Google. I mean, it's totally controlled. I mean, this is. I mean, I feel betrayed by that, by the fact that betrayed and perhaps how to say. I won't say irritated, but it's kind of it's, you know, we've been asleep while this been going on, while the system been kind of while the other force been creating the system to trap us really financially. You know, now they're taking our children unlawfully, illegally, like that. They kidnapping our children to use for their purposes, for their malicious purposes.
Right, right. Abraham, how do you feel?
Sometimes it's difficult to rest, so we have to concentrate on resting. But I'm eagerly anticipating the imminent spiritual battle.
Very good, very good. Now, there was no one present, no witnesses present on behalf who could tell the truth at this judicial proceeding, as far as I could tell. You were not present to tell the facts of the full story of your discovery of your children's participation in what appears to be, what we've unearthed, is a pedophile and ritual child sacrifice hub at Hampstead. So this is really almost the first opportunity here in the court of public opinion. This is serving as a first instance to get these facts and your testimony on the record, which should, if this judge had been an honest judge and not corrupted, and if this court had been an honest proceeding, and I say this as an attorney, as a former law professor at 2 universities, and as a judge at an international court, that this is disgraceful. The conduct of this court by any international standard is disgraceful, objectively.
Absolutely.
And so we would be very privileged if you could just ask you just to share the full story, and we'll just go down through how you discovered it first, that your children were participating in a pedophile hub at Hampstead, to which they were introduced apparently through their father, through the Christchurch school, through the Hampstead neighborhood, through others. So could you first start with that? You know, either Ella or Abraham, as though you're speaking in a court, just telling the facts of your firsthand eyewitness testimony.
All right. Well, the story has a lot of details, and I wouldn't kind of concentrate on. I would try to keep on track, kind of like the main line, but I came to England, you know, from Russia. I'm Russian now, and I learned that. And I learned when after discovering this, after children disclosing what happened to them, I realized that, you know, I was completely unaware of this culture, and even though I did always felt a bit uncomfortable to a certain degree, being in England is just some kind of like the distance English people keep, and a few other things as well. But I came from the culture where, I mean, perhaps it does exist, those practices, but to such a minimal degree that I've never heard about it until I came to Britain. And the first time I heard about the rituals was from the film, I think it's Da Vinci Code, you know, the picture film. And I thought it's so kind of dark, it's so unbelievable, I can't discard it really. And I thought this, well, it may happen, it may happening somewhere, but you know, it's just so crazy. Just I didn't really like pay much attention to that. And but my point is that people who've been born, who are born in Great Britain, they know about this. They know about pedophilia. They know about those the rituals, those ritual sacrifices, which I have almost no knowledge of that at all. And yeah, and even pedophilia is kind of, I heard the name. I know that it exists, but in Russia, we don't experience this almost at all. I'm sure pedophiles do exist, but they're in such an underground, and it's probably very few in between, and they're so scared of this exposure because people just will probably, I don't know, tear them apart for this kind of crime. So I came naive. I mean, I had no idea what's going on, and I did experience a lot of problems with children in regards to their behavior. They were expressing aggression towards each other or towards adults, and this started to happen from very early age. And I thought that I just happened to have difficult children, and those challenges I was dealing with, as you know, as much as you know, as best as I could. And you know, when children were young, maybe I would say starting, but really young, maybe 1-2 years old, they were tantruming a lot, but not because I have an older son of 17 years old, so I had experience of having child already. But that was incredible case with Alice and Gabriel. Those tantrums were just terrible, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And the aggression, the extreme aggression as well, which is it wasn't kind of ongoing, but it was kind of coming in waves, I would say. And but it just only now when I look at the history or at all the kind of things which puzzled me, perhaps in behavior of my ex-partner, their father, and in behavior of the children, it's now started, everything now falls into places and the picture becomes really clear. But at the time, I had no idea. And one of the alarming incidents was about, it happened maybe about 2 years ago, when I caught both children in a second bathroom, where when I came in, Alisa had her panties down, and Gabriel was filming her. And I did explain them to as much as I could that, you know, it's inappropriate. You know, you don't do that. You know, your private parts, to show your private parts is for your own. You know, you use it for yourself. It's your private part. You don't show anyone. You don't let anyone to touch it. And so anyway, but the point is, it really kind of puzzled me that why he was filming her, where this behavior came from. They didn't say anything. It was a little tiny footage of maybe 50 seconds where it was just filming Alisa's private part. And from then on, I was keeping an eye on children and trying not to leave them together unattended. And but then of course it's, you know, it's difficult. Yeah, and I was single mother at the time, and I thought something was going on, but I never caught them red-handed. And I think then I think I would pass it to Abraham, really, because when he came into our family several months before it happened, they were
before it happened. No.
before the disclosure of the children. Before the disclosure. Maybe what was it in May? Sometimes May. I don't know. I pass it on to you. What's your first experience with the children? You know, the aggression and all this, and touching. Crystal.
I first met the children at a nutritional event, nutritional party that Ella brought them to.
Sorry, could you say that again?
At a nutritional party at a nutritional event that Ella and the children came to. They came to. They were invited to a nutritional event, and I was there talking and sharing some information about hemp seed nutrition. Okay. And I had cause, on the first time I met the children, I had cause to comment on Elisa's cynicism. I had a bit of an interaction with Elisa, introduced myself, and she cynically dismissed me. And it wasn't until she later learned that I had a special food that she wanted to be my friend. And I had cause to share this with Ella, Elisa's mother. And that was my first encounter. As we got to know one another, I noticed some apparent behaviour. One of the things I noticed on a trip to Glastonbury was Gabriel grabbing Elisa by the hair and attempting to smash her head onto the pavement. He pulled her from a van, and I was shocked. And another friend of ours who witnessed it was also shocked to speechlessness. And as I got to know the children more, I began to notice certain other incidents that raised my alarm bells, and I quickly began to suspect that these children had been sexually abused. Gabriel, for example, would go jogging, and he displayed arrested development. They were violent towards me, slapping me in my head while we were driving in the car. And also we witnessed them touching the dog, the family pet dog, inappropriately. What other alarm bell? Oh yes. Do I talk about the school? What are you asking us? What's the specific question?
I talked about school. I think this is important.
The school. There's a very important. We find this incident at school. I had called to pick the children up from school one.
It happened. It must have happened in July.
This is May and July of
this last year.
Of 2014.
That's right. Literally like a month or a bit more before children disclosed. Mm-hmm. And I noticed for the couple of years, Alisa started to suffer from some kind of eczema or allergy on her face. And I noticed that it becomes worse with her consuming sugary foods or sweets. And refined sugars. So I warned the school many times about this, to refrain from giving sweets to Alisa. And then on one occasion, when Abraham was picking children from the school, he noticed that one of the teachers is giving out the sweets to them, and to Alisa specifically. And he was aware of the situation about this allergic reaction to the refined sugars, as he's working in the nutritional field, and he's a kind of a specialist in this area. He asked, how would you explain what happened then?
Well, I know, as I arrived at the playground, I noticed that one of the teachers was handing out sweets. freely to the children, refined sweets, refined sugar sweets. And as I arrived, she just happened to be passing one to Elisa. Elisa was aware enough that I was there, and she quickly handed them back to the teacher. But I'd already seen them, and I challenged the teacher, and I asked her why she felt the need to be giving the sweets to Elisa, when her mother had expressly asked the school to avoid giving them to Elisa. What happened? She lied and told me that it was her birthday. We later learned that it wasn't her birthday. And then I was approached by another teacher, a Mr. Louis Hollings, who has been implicated as one of the ringleaders of this cult. I was approached by him, and I could see that he was agitated. So I took him away from the group of children with the sweets, and I told him that I was concerned about his colleague giving the sweets to Elisa, and as these refined sugars affected the children in the way that certain drugs did. And he became quite agitated and seemed to want to get into some sort of confrontation. I stepped back from him. I took a pace away from him, and I asked to speak to a superior. He duly went off and went to seek a superior. I went into the school. I met the caretaker, introduced myself, and I waited patiently for him to return. He returned with someone whom I now know to be the deputy head, Kate Unwin. We went to a private room, and we sat down, and she informed me that her colleague had told her that I had been aggressive towards him, and to a teacher. And I had mentioned the word drugs in the earshot of the children. I had mentioned the word drugs in the earshot of the children. Okay. I explained to her that my spatial awareness had caused me to move away from the children and to hold my conversation with her colleague out of earshot of the children. And so I was curious as to why he would feel the need to lie, and why she would feel the need to support him in his lie. I told them that I was a nutritionist. I explained that I was a nutritionist, and that I would report back to Elisa and Gabriel's mother, what I had witnessed, and I duly did. By the time I arrived back at home with the children, Ella informed me that social services had called, that the school had called social services, and they in turn had called Ella. This raised my alarm bells, and I wondered why. Why did they feel the need to make such a fuss about the giving, about being caught, about having been caught giving a packet of sweets to Elisa? We now know in hindsight that sweets were what they paid the children in, or one of the currencies they paid the children for allowing themselves to be raped.
I see. Now, what was her name? The deputy head. What was her last name?
Miss Kate Unwin, or Mrs. Kate Unwin. And the teacher.
U-N-L-E-Y?
U-N-Y-I-N.
No, Unwin. U-N-W-I-N.
Sorry, W-W. W-I-N.
U-N-W-I-N. Unwin. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So
she apparently is a sister-in-law to Katie Forsdyke, who is the headmistress. Discuss that later.
Right, so this also kind of was a bit concerning to me, that all is because of such a small incident, which really could be resolved right there and then. Okay, school didn't comply. They could just say that maybe this teacher was unaware about the sweets. why they why they created such a big
Scene, yeah.
scene about it. And the other things as well I would like to mention that would also was really kind of worrying to me is Alisa's cynicism. Where does it come from? And I did attempt many times to talk to her about it. You know, what worried her, what bothered her. Maybe someone was hurting her in school. Maybe she had some problem there because she became quite cold. She was losing her empathy, I felt, and compassion to the, for example, to the suffering of others. I've seen it clearly. And also with Gabriel, I started to notice some kind of glazing over his eyes, as if he was switching off from the reality. And that was not quite frequent, but it did caught my eye quite a few times. And yeah, well, basically, this is we gave. I mean, there are much more things there. Just I don't want to take our airtime to kind of go into these little details.
No, this is exactly the sort of thing that you would be saying on the stand at the court.
Right.
You
Okay.
would have been allowed the right, given the right, your right to testify in open court, as should have been the case.
Right. Okay then. So, well, what also is worth mentioning that I've been in the legal proceeding with their father prior to that for a long time, and for some period, I think between 2010 and 2011, the father had visiting rights, which I was not totally objecting while we got into the proceedings and into this dispute, because I wasn't, I didn't quite, I wouldn't say how to say, I wasn't quite sure he was doing, I wouldn't say a good job as a father, but there was a lot of worrying signs for me, and I didn't really want to give him children for long times, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to take them overnight, and for long periods of time. But there were a lot of things happened before that. You know, for example, the violence. And on one occasion, he tried to kill me because I refused to go to a party arranged by him. Well, in fact, he created an argument with me. I think now it was a deliberate, so I would stay home. I would get upset and stay home as well. He made my son, the eldest son, upset. Who's supposed to be going with us for this show. It was in O2 Arena, some children's show. One of those big like a covered stadium, a famous O2 Center, O2 Arena now, where they doing all the concerts. It was a VIP booth, and so we're all supposed to go. And just before that, I received, but while we were getting ready, I received a very strange email, which my son read for some reason. Maybe it was open on computer and he was doing something, and he said, "Mom, look at this." And it was quite, it was a threatening email saying that I committed some fraud, and it made him very upset, and said, well, I looked at it briefly and I didn't really take it serious. It was obviously a scam. And I explained James, my son, who would, at a time, I think he was about 10 years old, that, don't worry about it. It must be, mistaken, or some people scamming. But then, for some reason, I asked Mr. Dearman about this. And he said, oh, yes, I sent it to you as a joke. And I asked him, well, what kind of joke is that? James upset, I'm concerned. And he said, well, I thought it's going to be funny. So now we're discussing that, and basically, I said, I'm not going to go. James upset, I'm upset now, we're not going to go, but you can, it's why children should suffer. You can take children. And as he was going out with them, I don't know, intuitively, I didn't feel very good about it. And I said, well, I think we can't just do that. Half of the group staying back home, and I think we just canceled the trip. So he's got really upset. And as I was taking children back in the house, he grabbed me and took me in the bathroom. Well, grabbed me and pulled me in the bathroom, really, I would say, and started to kind of swing me by holding my hair around in the bathroom, and finally put me on the floor, and he started to push my head with his knee, and he's a very heavy man. So, I thought I'm going to die. That was, he's going to crack my skull or something like that. I even had some trouble with breathing, and I screamed out to James to call the police. So when he heard that James already speaking to the police, then he let me go. So, while this has been going on.
Yeah, could you just, sorry to interrupt, who exactly was it who was holding you on the floor again?
Well, their father,
okay.
who children made accusations against.
I see.
Right, and so, but this was, there were a few incidents before as well, but not as severe as this one. Well, in fact, he's never hit me, but he kind of like pushed me or things like that, where I ended up calling the police. It was, I think, about five police calls out in total. And then I also reported him stalking us, stalking my nanny with children, stalking my mom with children, sending me emails of inappropriate content, where he said that he saw me in, just really kind of harassing emails. So, so in spite of that, the court didn't take it seemed like didn't take into consideration any of that, and still allowed unaccompanied contacts for him, unsupervised contacts every Saturday for all day between 10 and 6. And that was really terrible time, because almost every time, children came back sick. On many occasions, one of them would throw up. And I thought, because I'm also health conscious and I've been studying nutrition for a long time, diet of my children is extremely healthy, well, to my opinion. They're healthy children. They hardly ever catch colds or flus. They're very fit physically. They're very clever. They're very bright children. They speak 2 languages fluently. They're doing. I'm investing a lot of time into their education. They read in both languages. Lisa plays a violin. They're both learning tennis. Gabriel goes to judo. So jiu-jitsu as well. So their education is quite diverse. And so what's been going on during the Saturdays, children would often come sick. They would come in terrible mood. They would be fighting like crazy, screaming and shouting towards each other, towards me. They would be very disrespectful. And but physically, it was terrible. They would be sick. On one occasion, Alisa was so sick, she was lying down next day in bed, like she didn't want to move. And it was like she had high temperature, and I almost took her to emergency room. I did speak to the hospital. I'm sure they have recordings of that. And so this has been going on for a year. They would often miss the school on Monday or Tuesday, both of them or one of them, and we would spend another few days recovering from that. Now, nevertheless, it's nothing I could do. In regards that, my objections were discarded really by the court, and until finally he retained them at the unknown address for 3 days. And at that time, I didn't have the residence in my favor, and so police could not do much really because of this me not having residence. So I think they searched him and found some former address where this address where he held children for 3 days was unknown. He wasn't registered there, and he was insisting me to come and collect children there. He missed the time when he's supposed to bring children back, and I was waiting and waiting for an hour and a half, and I went back home, and then he was demanding me to go to this property to collect the children, which I rejected. At some point, he did actually give me the address. I think late afternoon Sunday, still demanding me to go there. Anyway, on Monday, my solicitors got involved, and children been returned to me also late evening. They missed school on that day, and it was another incident which I didn't know. Children only disclosed to me later on, about 2 weeks after it happened. But this happened to happen after this incident when he retained them. And what happened? On Friday, prior to the contact with their father, Gabriel refused at some point talking to the father. I think he was hungry. Maybe he just was tired. It was end of school week, and so he said he wants to go to eat. He doesn't want to speak to him anymore. And so next day, the father he punished them by leaving them on the busy junction of the highway, which is we resided at the time, like 2 blocks away from this highway. It was a really busy, dangerous junction. He left them on the 2 meters, like 6 feet wall, on their own, and he drove off. He left them for 30 minutes as a punishment for Gabriel not wanting to speak to him. So, based on these 2 incidents, I stopped the contacts, and in November, end of November 2011, he gave up his visiting rights, saying that I make the contacts very difficult, and he doesn't want to pursue it anymore. And it turned out he went away. He either planned to go away. I don't know what was the motivation between him dropping the rights, but he did. And he declared in the courtroom. So at that time, I received a residence order. So children were residing with me. And by the way, the story which Judge Puffley gave to the media is that that is a dispute. It's a custody dispute. Now, this couldn't be further from the truth, because I already had custody over my children. So for me, there was no reason to. They say I coached them, we coached them in order to get on to him. Well, why? I mean, I had custody over children. I didn't want to do anything with him. Why I would create the story and coach children to say such outrageous things? And first of all, I wouldn't even have the details of the story myself to coach them. But why would I do that? Why I would take children with these false allegations to the police and to put them through what they're going through, and to put myself in this situation? Besides, I think it's a quite serious crime, right? To make false allegations and of this matter. And not just that, if you wanted to get back onto him, I mean, why I would include teachers, parents, why I would do that? Police officers, the social workers, Kafka's workers, what or not, I would do that. So this is kind of the background of the case, really. Then for some time, to my awareness, they were not seeing father. and maybe for like 2.5 years, until June of 2013, where he first showed up again in London. Now, starting September 2013, that again became like really difficult time. Children were coming back from the school really distressed, in a terrible mode. I would take them to the park so they can unwind and just be in the nature and just to calm down. But this year was terrible, and but he didn't see them. So I thought, what's going on in school? Why are they coming in such a mood, in such a state? And it's only later, when children disclosed their experiences, I learned that he was visiting the school at the time, or maybe started to visit the school at the time. And they also explained me that he knew one of the teachers, which I think was Gabriel, year 1 teacher, Miss Wilmer. I think Claire Wilmer. I'm not quite sure about the first name. So children explained me that their father, Mr. Damon, knew Miss Wilmer before they were long-term friends. And she introduced him to Mr. Hollings and then to Mrs. Forsdyke, and they became very good friends. This is what children explained me, how he been introduced in school. Yeah, well, coming back to this visit, well, to the context when he saw them for a whole year. Children are saying that this happened before they went to school. They're explaining that he was taking them to what I understand is a pedophile ring. It was a group of people. They gave names independently, so we could cross-reference them. So it was Minia, of a Polish nationality, then Brewster, German, and Joseph, English. Plus, there was members of family, of Damon's family involved. His mother, his sister Lisa, and husband David, and his brother Wayne, and his spouse Mary. Both couples have 2 children, which I never met, and to my awareness, children not supposed to have met them, but they know exactly the names of the children, the age, and those couples, they brought their children also for the abuse, well, rape. And this is the time when I would imagine I understand Mr. Damon got involved in child pornography and and snuff movies. Those children are describing that they were wearing masks, and adults were doing sex to them. That's children. Well, yeah, but this I'm using children's words.
Yeah, I just wondered, could you because I didn't get, and perhaps members of the audience didn't get the full picture. So you're saying that here we're coming back to September 2013, but then there's a period of a year, you said, where they became involved in a pedophile ring. Now,
yes.
Where was that who brought them to the pedophile ring, and where was that pedophile ring based? And,
well,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, their father was when he had formal contacts with children every Saturday from 2010 and 2011. But I believe that he probably was taking them even before that, when he was taking children, well, informally, really, from to take them for a walk, or to take them shopping, or to take them into a soft indoor play center, which I've been allowing for it to happen for quite a while, until my concerns were increasing. And
Yeah, so that you're saying is that during this entire period from 2010, the father was actually surreptitiously or covertly involving the children in a pedophile ring.
that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clear. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. And so it was a core group. They don't mention anyone else. So they've been abusing their own children, and also Booster, I believe, he, as children explained, he was either a nanny, a male nanny, or he was looking after children where he was bringing someone else's children over, I think 1.5, 2, the boy, and a girl a bit older, maybe 2, 3 years old, also for these sessions. And they were raping children at front of the camera. They were filming it. And then Alisa also was saying that they even showed the children those films online, and they were making children, they were forcing children to witness the rape of the other children. And Gabriel very graphically were describing how 2 adults were holding his hand from both sides, or one adult, to force him to see the rape of the other children.
Right. And I just want to make it clear, when did Gabriel describe all of this to you?
That happened in August, when we went.
In August of 2015.
That's correct.
No, 2014.
2014. Sorry, I'm sorry. I got the dates mixed up. So what you're saying is that in August of 2014, and that goes back to this he was talking about the prior events. Now, what precipitated the children first starting to speak to you and to verbalize their experiences about this?
Well, it was Abraham who actually he was first witness of this disclosure. So perhaps I will pass it on to him so he can explain it better.
We've become increasingly concerned about the children's behaviour. And
Right.
We suspected that they were touching each other intimately. Ella suspected it. We later discovered that the nanny, she knew of it, but she covered it up. Nanny had witnessed it and covered it up. I suspected it, and then I caught them. I caught them touching each other. I'd noticed that Elisa would go to Gabriel's bed early in the mornings. Anyway, I caught them one time doing it, and I asked them, who taught you to do that? And they said to me, Papa. He was reluctant to tell me, of course, but I badgered him, I badgered them, and eventually they said no one. And I said, no, I know someone's taught you that. And I know who. But please tell me, who taught you? And they said, Papa. And then,
yeah, go ahead.
slowly from there, they began to disclose. However, we quickly learned that they had been programmed, they'd been conditioned, and they had been raised as soldiers. They'd been desensitized to killing, and there were times when they were disclosing that Elisa would make a sign to Gabriel to be uncooperative. We also learned during this time that they also had a secret sign language as well. But during disclosures, they would often become uncooperative, and they would attempt to distract us and lead us astray.
Although what I want to say, they were very relieved. Gabriel became just different child. he became much more relaxed, just just enjoying himself. And Alisa would be like really loving, just beautiful child who's been relieved of this burden, of this secret. And but they were like switching in between these two modes.
Yes. So one moment they'd be gone.
As they were disclosing, I think they started to it's something about the information that they were giving out. All of a sudden, she would get, probably it was a fair,
Yeah, definitely fair.
There was she would, or both of them, or one of them would get scared, and they would just shut down. They would be they would stop disclosing, and they would say, I remember on one occasion, Alisa started to she was keep saying that they never existed, and that's what, I guess, programming that how she was programmed. No, they must have told her that, if you're going to say, that's what you're supposed to answer. They never existed.
If anybody have a question, but what happened? They would switch from being angelic children, and they would become demonic. They would, and we finally worked out that when they changed, one of the triggers for them changing was when they touched each other intimately. We learned that the father taught them and pressured them and terrorized them into touching each other intimately at least 5 times a day. And they had become quite adept at doing it. They would often ask their mother to make food when they weren't hungry in order to get an opportunity to touch each other intimately. They had a secret sign language that they'd use to communicate when they would touch, to meet in the bathroom, to go and touch.
Like squinting eyes, for example, or sticking tongue out,
or sticking their bottom out.
Or like wriggling the bottom or shoulders, things like that. And they did explain what it meant afterwards when we noticed that. And they said that their father was coming to school and actually teaching them at school, well, I would imagine other children as well, the secret language. But they said that they also created their own signs as well.
And they began to wait during the disclosures, at the very beginning of the disclosures, shortly after, they began to wage a war specifically against me. Because they felt that, I can understand now, they felt that I would be the problem, because that I was a problem, because I'd gotten them to disclose, and now they were at risk of being killed by their father, because the reason they'd never told was because they were always fearful that he would carry out his threat to kill them.
Now, during what period was this? Just to get context.
Within the first few days of disclosure, they began.
But I mean, what were the dates?
Right. We went away around, I think, beginning of August. So they started to disclose, I would imagine, in the middle of August, the second week
of 2014.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Good. Thank you.
And shortly afterwards, they began to wage. I think Elisa, we learned also that in the cult, Gabriel was subordinate to Lisa, and he would have to do as she said. And she would often get him to steal money and to do other things. That was another
warning signs that they were stealing money, and apparently they saying that they were stealing money as well for their father, and their father also asked them to take bank details from my credit card. Now, just at around this time, I didn't know it happened, but I had some fraudulent activity in my with this card, where there were some purchases being made with my card, and the flights tickets for example, with I think
German.
Air Berlin, and it's a jet which I reported to the bank, and at the time, which I think happened maybe in June. So children saying that their father made them to take this car details. Now, even though I gave this evidence to police, again, this never been investigated. This particular incident, and then well, the worrying thing is that it was all kind of like they could take £5 from my purse, which after some time when I noticed, I started to hide. But then they were taking large amounts of money as well.
Yeah. Then they began taking larger amounts of money
for him,
for their
the
father. Yeah, and they also stole my phone. But these were just other warning signs for us.
Which
Right.
they know.
I didn't know that they stole the phone because the phone went missing, and I would not imagine that the children had stolen it. But it went missing, and the strange thing was, it went missing in the house. It wasn't if I'd gone outside and lost it outside. It went missing in the house, so it was a bit of a quandary. Anyway, back to the disclosure.
Right.
During the very early beginning of the disclosure, I noticed that the children became very hostile to me at times. Sometimes, most of the time, they'd be loving, but they would sometimes become very hostile. And I felt it was the fear of their father killing them. Now,
For disclosing.
Now, what happened is that I started to get very ill, and I started to spend a lot of time in the toilet. And we later learned that not only were they putting excrement on our food, but they were also taking my toothbrush and wiping it around the Moroccan toilet in order to make me ill, to prevent us from questioning them and them disclosing more.
I see.
I initially said nothing about the toothbrush, and I moved the toothbrush. However, they continued to put excrement on my toothbrush, and I'd become very ill.
And me too. We both were very ill for about 10 days. I think.
Now, we questioned them, and eventually and it became very acrimonious. And I have to admit that I hit them with a metal spoon on their head.
And this is what they used the court. They used it against Abraham. But the thing is, they made after children been taken into police protection. That's what they call it.
After they've been taken into police protection.
Yes, after I think there was the medical examination took place on the 12th and 15th, and it's only much later, several months later, I received the photographs of their body parts having bruises, and they said that it was Abraham. They created the story that he was pushing them against the wall. He was kicking them in their privates, on their ankles, but those bruises were fresh. They have no bruises. There was old kind of bruise on Alisa's forehead, which you still can see on the camera during the both police interviews and I think private interviews as well.
Yeah.
So they were taken by police on the late 11th. And those pictures, I believe, they've been taken on the 15th. So those bruises on I don't even know if it was their pictures, but there were obvious bruises, fresh bruises, like red and blue, fresh injuries.
Right.
And they saying that it was Abraham who was abusing them physically.
Now, let me ask you, how and when did all this become public? How, I think Abraham first went to the police at some point.
What happened?
All of a sudden, videos appeared on the
Explain.
internet.
Let me
Could you
explain.
walk us through that sequence of events?
Okay. However, back to disclosures. We finished the disclosure.
Okay.
What happened was that at one time we felt our lives. We felt threatened by the children.
I see.
And Ella questioned Elisa because we later learned that they'd been brainwashed using some sort of mind control technique, and that had been told for 2 years. How many years had you been telling them to kill you?
For about 2 years before that, the father was telling them to kill me.
Oh,
And children say, well, we wouldn't do that, we wouldn't do that. But then they admitted again during the disclosure that father also asked them to kill both of us. And so it was quite a few occasions they mentioned that.
And then Ella asked her. Ella told me about this, and I found it difficult to believe. So Ella asked Elisa, in my presence, what did you say to her?
Whether she is still thinking of killing us. And she said, a little bit.
mhm.
So
And she described how she would have done it.
I asked her, how would you kill her? And she said, I would come and stab you in your heart while you're sleeping. She said, Mama is easy to kill, but you, Uncle Hen, you wouldn't be so easy to kill.
Hmm.
So we're just attempting to give you an insight into the nightmare that we and the children experience during the disclosures. We often forget to explain to people that every time they did touch, we really felt the manifestation of demonic energy every time they did touch.
Right.
And we were in a battle with the children to keep them separate and to prevent them from touching intimately.
Well, not separate. When we were together, but we wouldn't leave them kind of two of them in a different
You couldn't
room,
leave them alone for a second, because they would take the opportunity to touch intimately, and that would manifest that demonic energy. I don't know how it works. I haven't done enough research, but this seems to be the mechanism, or some sort of mechanism that they use to create this energy. They're working with demonic forces, so I don't know. They will eventually become adept at it. So that's something that we experience.
Yeah. And well, coming back to the question, right?
Where's the question? What was the question again? Let's get back to how did it manifest? Yeah.
No, how did it
when we got to the police station?
No, how the material got online, right?
Well, what happened is that whilst we were in Morocco, we became very concerned. When we were during the disclosure, we became very concerned, and we were wondering, to whom should we report these disclosures? Who would we speak to? We considered speaking to a firm of solicitors that have represented me in the past. And then we decided to go with my brother-in-law, who's a police sergeant. And
Jean
Clément. He's from the Ivory Coast. And whilst he may be naive in the ways of, how would I say, the culture of paedophilia in the UK, he's honest and he's a decent man, which is why we decided to call him and give him a clue as to the situation. And he was the person that we went directly to when we flew back to the UK on September the 4th. We didn't rest, we went directly to see him and get him to speak to the children, let the children speak to him.
Right. And what occurred then?
He spoke. We took a recording. We did some recording. I asked the children to speak to him. I was definitely in shock. I was totally in shock by them because, it takes a little while for you to take it on board exactly what you're dealing with. You can hear the story, but for you to actually accept that it's real, it's happening, because the children are telling us that altogether, they told us that altogether there were 20 special family. So you have to accept the fact that you've got 20 sets of parents. That's 40 adults. They say that all the teachers in the school are involved. That's another 30 adults. Then they're telling us that all the children of these parents are involved, and the children of the teachers are involved. And that
children of the teachers. Yeah. Mrs. Forsberg. Yeah.
And that they're all raping and buggering each other, and it's happening regularly in school. At first, it's quite, it's unbelievable. That's the only way I could describe it. It's unbelievable. But as the children continue to disclose, and then they want to, then they you can feel animosity. You can feel that they, and they would attempt to poison you. They were fight. They felt. I believe that they felt misplaced sense of loyalty towards the cult, because that's all they ever knew. They grew up in the cult.
Not only.
Of course. Well, fortunately, they had a devoted mother that showed them what was right and what was good. So they had that as a counterbalance to the depravity of the cult, and we believe that's really what allowed them to be able, ultimately. That's part of what allowed them to be able to speak and to face their fear and to overcome their fear of the threat of being killed. The counterbalance of having a devoted mother that gave them everything to need to be right. And so what happened with the disclosure? So yeah, we told Jean Clement, and he in turn went to to some of his colleagues in Barnet, because that's the special unit. And we quickly, after 2 or 3 days, we quickly realized that we'd been betrayed.
After a few days, you quickly realized what?
We realized we'd been betrayed, because the first 2 officers that came to the house, because we felt confident that we'd gotten the children back, we'd gotten the story out of them, under duress. It would have been a terrible time for us and for the children. It was terrible. But we'd gone through that. We'd gone through it. We'd come out the other end. The children were happy. They were happy that they'd been able to disclose, and that we'd come to the UK, and we all felt that we were going to achieve justice, and we'd get help from from someone in authority.
Right.
We're aware of the corruption within the police system, within social services, within the judicial system, but we naively assumed that there would be some good people that would help us within these institutions. But we quickly learned that these institutions, all the positions of power, have been taken by members or affiliates or people who are subordinate to the cult members. And it seems we've slept. We've been asleep. Humanity has been asleep, and we've allowed these demonic forces to take over all the governing institutions on the planet.
Right. Well, before getting to that, what exactly happened after you took?
The first officers that came on, you can tell them about Cleo and John and Dick.
The first officers who came, looks like they've been taken out of the case. I've seen this lady on few occasions. I mean, she's the one who helped Steve during the interview on the 5th. When she first came, both of them were quite excited. They couldn't believe it in the beginning, but then after they heard the story, they took it seriously, and
they became the girl particularly, her name was Chloe or
Cleo
became very excited.
Yeah, but then both of them been taken off the case, and
quickly.
In fact, I saw Cleo on the 11th when I took children for the interview. This is the day when they've been taken into custody, where they've been they say taken into protective custody, but in fact they were kidnapped without any paperwork being given to me. They just said they had power to take them, and they took us out of the premises.
So basically what they did is that you went to Jean Clément, your brother-in-law. Two officers then came, and they sat, and once they heard the story, they took it seriously, but they were taken off the case. And then 9 to 10 officers came to your home, and the children were kidnapped?
That was later. No, that was later. No.
Oh.
That happened in September. Now, children have been taken into care on the 11th.
Yeah.
We took them along for an interview.
They invited us for an interview.
This is on September 11th, 2014?
That's correct. That's correct. And also, I was interviewed as well, while children have been interviewed. And they tricked us into the building because we agreed between us that for the security reason, we're not going to go into the building altogether. But they tricked us, me to call Abraham to come back with Gabriel, because Gabriel was interviewed first. So, Lisa was interviewed first. I don't remember this now. Yeah. And so they learned about Gabriel hitting them with the spoon, and Abraham. What did I say? Gabriel. Oh, yes. It's just so much talking now. Yes, Alisa mentioned about this, and based on that, they took children into custody, and as well on the because of the series of allegations. And the third point, which I learned later, they tried to frame me as a mad woman. That's right. Where Matt Fernandez, who was one of the detectives involved in the case, he called me next day after children been taken. He said that we have concern about your mental health, and I asked, why is that? How did you conclude this? And he said that I didn't fight with them, I didn't break into hysteria, so I kept the emotional poise. And I mean, what can I do? I mean, they explained that they have rights to take children of me, and have to get a legal representative. Of course, it was shocking and devastating. I actually probably was in too much shock to even say something. And I said, well, if I did that to try and fight with you or something like that, you would definitely take me into the mental hospital, wouldn't you? So he didn't kind of pursue it. But then I learned that on the 9th, which is 2 days before they took children into care, they held a strategy meeting where they already agreed what they're going to do. They're going to take children into custody. This is even before they learned that Abraham hit children with a spoon. Also, one of them, I think the social worker, I think I would imagine in a high position in the social services, she suggested that mother is crazy. And also, what else? Something else. And also, most likely that we coached them to say the story. And this has happened on the 9th. So and then they were taken on the 11th. And so they pursued this story that we coached them. We coached children to repeat the story for some unknown reason, because nobody bothered to interview us.
I've never been interviewed, Alfred.
So if it was their suspicions that we coached them, why don't you find out? I mean, this is a criminal case which was very quickly closed without even waiting for the medical results to arrive. Police, they did follow so-called procedure. Like, for example, they did request the medical examinations, but the case was closed on the 22nd. I understand that police haven't received even the results of these medical examinations. So why don't you wait? But the thing is, the case was not investigated at all.
And the medical examination, the medical report supported the children's testimony.
And
right.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying, that the case was not investigated at all, and whatever little was investigated was dismissed. In fact, I think on the next day after the first interview, D.I. Cannon, who was in charge of this case, he's already said that there is no serious evidence to support the allegations. So.
Is it taken into account that the children given them addresses, names, addresses,
Identify particular property.
Identify particular properties, given them the locations of secret rooms, escape routes, what else?
And
Distinguishing marks, graphic details of intimate distinguishing marks of some of the abusers. Nothing was investigated.
And from then on, during this many hearings, they tried to impose the psychiatric assessment over me, and framing Abraham as a main abuser. After the retractions, I mean, there were allegations, then they retracted the allegations, so there is no more accused. So, but they had to come with some story how this. They had to justify, I guess, kidnapping children, and now keeping children with no intentions to return them back to me, or back to my family.
So, and you're saying, Abraham, you said that you have never been questioned? Is that what you?
They never asked me. They never called me for an interview. It was only after the videos began appearing on the internet that they come to me. They never asked me.
They made a witness summons.
They made a witness summons for me to become party to the proceedings. To come to court.
Right. Now,
but no one ever interviewed me.
Yeah.
And when the videos came, go on, Alfred.
No, go ahead.
And once the videos came online, that's when they began to harass us, and they began sending teams of agents, masquerading as police officers, to our premises.
And what would those? You mean there were phony police officers?
Well, they didn't even say that they were police officers. They just came, and we thought that their sole intention was to kidnap.
No, there were some people in the uniform. There were some policemen in the uniform.
On one occasion.
On one occasion, yeah.
You see, they have a template. They have a template with whistleblowers. They have a template. They discredit them, lock them up, or institutionalize them. What else do they do? Section them, or kill them if they can.
Now, so at this stage, have the children been taken into state care on the 11th, correct?
That's correct.
And then, but then, so you're saying that after that, they would continue to send agents to harass you. Is that it?
No, at this time, my property was watched, and we've been followed everywhere by some unknown people.
Right.
And my email account was hijacked, and the telephone.
In the US, we call them COINTELPRO.
Right.
These are contractors that are hired by the coordinated networks to harass whistleblowers, as you say.
Mm-hmm. For example, there was a van parked at front of my property for a week with a camera facing my front door. But but the visits of police, it only happened after video got released.
Right. Now, how was it that the video came to be released?
Well, at some point, I decided not to be represented legally, because I learned that both the two companies who were representing me in the beginning during September, October were not actually acting in my best interests. So I became a litigant in person with the help of Mackenzie associations.
Yeah.
Right, and because this group of people have been involved in my case and been helping me with the paperwork, with the working out the strategy, and they had access to the materials of the court.
Right.
Now I received Judge Mayer, who was the first judge. No, not the first judge, but the judge who made this case exclusively to her. She ordered the disclosure, the police disclosure, and my solicitors passed the disclosure to me, and that included police interviews. I mean, obviously, private videos were made by us on the way to London and also in London.
Right.
So, and private videos were never made material of the court or materials of the court. When the police investigation took place, I did made police aware that I have a lot of evidence. Well, I have videos, I have diary pages, I have drawings, and I have a few other things. Now, they never asked me for the evidence, but for our protection, we copied those private videos, and we gave to some people we could trust. So, and there was a lot of people coming to my house, so I'm not quite sure how, but the police at the end got those the set of videos, which we're still kind of only guessing how it might happen, and we're suspicious of certain people. But anyway, they gone to the police. Someone handed them in. However,
Right.
I never handed them myself. I never been asked to do that.
Right.
I never made those videos part of the court material. So, but when Judge Mayer learned that I was in possession of those videos, of those police videos, she made a gagging order for me not to disclose those videos. And then later on, I've been made to return those videos as well, back to, I was made to return to the court, but the solicitor firm representing Barnett Council, their office was named as a destination point that I had to return those videos there. So coming back then to how those videos been released. Now, I know what I've been explained, and one of the members of the Mackenzie Association, Sabrina McNeil, and I think she's saying, well, she's explaining it as well, but that's what she told me, that at some point, way before any gagging orders, we wrote, we both compiled a letter to the councillors, to the local councillors, 40 local councillors, with the explanation what happened, and for someone to step in and remedy the situation.
Right.
And also, she sent the same message with the same content to Theresa May,
Right.
Home Secretary, right?
Yes.
And but for some reason, she copied a blogger, or blind copied a blogger. Now, I never known anything about this copying blogger.
Yeah.
But this happened quite a while before videos got released, and all of a sudden, on the, I think it was the 10th of February, those videos got released, and it looks like by that blogger.
I see.
Now that happened after the gagging order took place. So, but really, in fact, still the order wasn't breached because those private videos were never
Right.
made court material.
But still, that was a Mackenzie friend that was acting in the place of counsel to you, and that was confidential court material that she leaked to a blogger. That could have prejudiced your rights on appeal.
Well, yes, well, this is the case. However, those private videos were never made court material.
I see.
I never gave those materials to the court. They were really my private property, which I shared with Mackenzie friends.
Right, I see. Because Mrs. I'm looking at Justice Frawley, Mrs. Justice Frawley, and she's saying about this case, she's saying, it's akin to the sensation, I imagine, of a Facebook user having an indication that some posting or other has been liked, i.e., she's trying to turn the fact that here you have a Mackenzie friend, which if you go into the literature, Belinda Mackenzie and the Mackenzie friends have legal standing in the British system. And so I would say that it's a questionable issue of Mackenzie friends leaking confidential court information to a blogger, but that was done here. But here, the court is trying to use this and to reduce this entire case to the case of an email war or, a flurry on the internet, to a Facebook issue. And so I think that, I'm just trying to clarify. I mean, it seems to me that all of a sudden the court has pounced on this issue and made it almost a part of their ruling.
Well, I don't really feel the court understands the real, how can I say, they don't really have an objective view of what's going on. One of their own peers, Justice Munby, he's already advised them to take into account the power of social media, and they seem oblivious
to it. Now, could I ask you? I just sincerely want to ask you: are you happy or are you upset that material was leaked?
Right. Well.
Initially, we weren't impressed. Honestly, we weren't impressed at first.
Okay.
Well, because I specifically I was clear about that. I don't, if ever this material, well, this particular videos, which were not, again, I want to repeat myself, were not part of the court material. I wouldn't release those videos as they were. Like I wouldn't like, for example, faces are unblurred and with their names there. But then it happened, and of course, it's greatly inconvenient our life. We had to leave the country. There were police coming to kidnap us on numerous occasions, and I've been charged with serious allegations, which I haven't done anything really. But
Alfred, can we take a break now for a little while? Do you mind? Is it possible or no?
Yes. We'll do that right now.
We take a 15-minute break.